Hello everybody, John here again. I'm here today to join in with the thread set by Graham from Crackin Vinyl. He's celebrating his 10 years in the vinyl community. And he's put together 20 tag questions, I suppose you might call them, his 80s tag. And I thought that was a lot of fun, you know. He and I are roughly the same sort of age time frame when we were kind of growing up and enjoying music, so I thought this might be quite fun to do. So I'm going to read the questions and answer them each one as I go. Number one, which 80s song had the best video? My answer to that, I think, is going to have to be Addicted to Love. You've all seen the video, very sort of iconic, and it was set to the track that was released on this album. I've learned something recently just about Robert Palmer, that he'll come up a little bit more a bit later on in this tag. So anyway, that's my answer, Addicted to Love. Question number two, show an album released in 1983. I'm going to show this one. Depeche Mode, Construction Time Again. One of my good friends at school was very much a Depeche Mode fan. I never really was until they released, a couple of years after this, the Black Celebration album. And my friend wanted me to go into London with him. We lived in Essex, so it was a sort of trip into London, quite a big thing in those days. To go and see them on the Black Celebration tour, and I remember sort of going along, didn't really know what to expect, but I really enjoyed the whole sort of concert experience and sort of big bombastic arena kind of feel, and the lights and the laser show and the music was incredible, and that's when I sort of started picking up on Depeche Mode. Question number three, show a 12-inch record. I'm going to show this one. I've shown this one just recently in my last video with Cam's thread about yellow covers, and so it was fresh in my mind when I read this prompt in Graham's 20 questions. Great track, really good track. I think most people would know this one. Really good track. Question number four, one-hit wonder. There were quite a lot of one-hit wonders in the 80s, I'm sure. This is the one that came to my mind. Toni Basil. Remember, she did, what was it called? Hey Mickey. Oh, it's just called Mickey. But that actually had quite an iconic video as well, didn't it? It's quite early in its day. 1981, when it came out. So that's my one-hit wonder. Hey Mickey by Toni Basil. Show a record of your favourite 80s artist. I don't think there's any secret. You know, I was a Durani fan, very much a big Duran fan. Had everything they did, listened to them all the time. And this is perhaps their, just about the peak of their sort of popularity, I think. They made albums after this and they're still going, but I think at this stage they were on top of the world, really. So that's Duran 7 and the Ragged Tiger. Number six, an 80s dance floor banger. I've gone straight to the top, and I've got several copies of this single, depending on which one I'm going to show. So basically, Blue Monday by New Order. Yeah, I've got several copies of this in different states of decay. That's a really good dance floor banger from the 80s. Number seven, which album cover is the most 80s? You know, I studied art at school, and it was always my dream to go to art college once I'd finished, and that's what I did. And I was very much aware and sort of impressed by a guy called Neville Brody. He was sort of the designer of the decade from the 80s. He was the one that essentially sort of reinvented or rediscovered the Bauhaus art movement, and you know, like we started getting black things in our house, black cube speakers and things like that. The stereos are sort of based on this very strict Bauhaus style. Well, he designed this album cover for Cabaret Voltaire. Very typical sort of Neville Brody typography there. And in the sleeve too. Yeah, I mean that's a typical Neville Brody of the time. So I'm going to show that one, very 80s. He didn't do actually many album covers, sadly, but that's one that he did do. Number 8, show a record by your favourite artist at Live Aid. I mean, that's a difficult one because there were lots, weren't there, you know, and I'm just going to, I'm not going to show Duran Duran again because I've shown them once. I would have liked to have shown Power Station for that, but no, that was a bit of a sad situation with Robert Palmer and the Power Station. Robert Palmer left Power Station just days before they were due to go on to Live Aid, which is why they had Michael DeBarris performing with them, but it confused everybody. So I'm not going to hold up Power Station. Well, I'm just going to go straight to the original and say Status Quo, because they opened the whole thing with their sort of remaking of their Rocking All Over the World, so that's why I'm going to show Status Quo. This was the album they released shortly after Live Aid. Show a band with big hair. There were lots of different phases of big hair, I think, in the 80s. I'm going to go straight to this one. This is the Alarm Declaration, and as you can see on the back, they've all got sort of lots of hairspray, backcomb sort of stuff going on, and very big hair indeed. There you go. So that's my big hair band. Favourite cover song, I guess, from the 80s. So this is a compilation album by Japan called Assemblage. Really important record for me. I had this, listened to it on my Walkman a lot. And it's really how I learnt to know the band, really. And it's through getting into this that I sort of then explored other, you know, the other albums by Japan. But the track I'm going to point to is the last one here, which is I Second That Emotion, which I believe is that a Smokey Robinson song? It's a really good cover version of it. I mean, this is the first place I learnt to know that song. I didn't even know it was a cover version until long afterwards. But that's my cover version. Okay, number 11, A Forgotten Gem. This is an interesting one. This is a record I've had in my collection for a short while now, and I've wanted a reason to show it, but I've never really been able to find a good reason to show it. But I'm going to show it now, and that is Hazy Fantasy. Remember them? They had a couple of, I mean, I did consider these as a potential for the sort of one-hit wonders, but I think they had at least 2 singles in the charts from this album, so they wouldn't be one-hit wonders. They had the track Shiny Shiny, and then they had one called John Wayne is Big Leggy. Incredible band. She was actually a photographer, and she still does photography now. This guy, I believe, was a disc jockey. And on the back, they've got a third person who you never really saw, but I think he was an integral part of the band. I think maybe he wrote and performed the music, whereas these two were more sort of just sort of dancing and singers. Anyway, so that's a bit of a blast from the past, isn't it? Hazy Fantasy. I wonder where they are now. Number 12. Which 2 artists do you wish had have collaborated? Graham showed a really good pairing. I think he showed David Bowie and Kate Bush, and wished that they had collaborated. That would have been quite cool. I must admit that would have been really good. I'm going to show a couple of my favourite artists, and I don't know whether they would have had a good collaboration, but it would have been an interesting sort of pairing to see how it would have gone. So I'm going to hold up this album by Talk Talk, and I'm thinking about Mark Hollis, the singer. He's sadly dead now. He released a solo album after Talk Talk had finished, which basically continued on this sort of progression of their albums at that point. And I think it would have been really cool if he had of worked together with David Sylvian from Japan. I mean, yeah, there's probably an argument that says, it could have been a situation of too many chefs, but I think they would have found common ground, I think. And I like to think that they would have, played ideas off each other and sort of really come up with some unique listening material. So that's my answer to that one. Time Machine. Which artists do you wish you could go back and see live? This is a difficult one. I put a bit of thought into this. I don't necessarily know if this is really a band, but it's a sort of a pairing of some people that I think would have been interesting to witness live, which you will never have now. And that is Brian May's and Friends, Starfleet project. This is really good because it's Brian May, and we all know Brian May is sort of the guitarist from Queen, and on this he has Eddie Van Halen joining him as sort of a second lead guitarist on the track. I don't suppose they ever did any live performances together, I'm not really sure, but I would have really liked to have seen that. That would have been quite cool. Quite an unusual situation. I think there was a lot of mutual respect between them, wasn't there? So that would have been a really interesting thing to witness live. Number 14, a synth pop record. I'm showing upstairs at Eric's by Yazoo. So that's a duo made up with Vince Clarke and Alison Moyet. They only did 2 albums, but they were really, really good albums. On Mute. A song from a movie. I watched Rob Walker yesterday and his version of this, and he showed a song by this very same band that I'm going to show. So I'm going to show, this is the Dream Academy, one of my favourite bands. And I'm going to talk about the song Power to Believe, which was featured in Trains, Planes and Automobiles. Yeah, so that's my answer to that question. A Hairbrush song. Well, I was never really much of a hairbrush singer. I would have been much more of an air guitarist. But I'm just going to hold up this one. I remember when this came out, I was very much into sort of quite typical sort of 80s pop music at the time. But I was slowly starting to get a little bit of a feel for hard rock. And I would have been at art college when this came out, and it was kind of big, and we were all really enjoying this. So that's Firewoman by The Cult. Great track to do a bit of air guitar to. An urban record. Around about that time, when I was enjoying The Cult, this was really big in the charts. This is Mars, Pump Up the Volume. And it was quite progressive for its time, I suppose, in terms of being a sort of a dance beat type of sort of thing, very dark, kind of heavy feel to it. Yeah, you must have all heard this. It was on the radio all the time when it came out. You don't hear it so much anymore, but it's a great 12-inch, great single. So number 18, who would you like to make a comeback? I think it would be really cool if Japan were to kind of make a comeback. Now, I know Mick Karn is no longer with us, sadly, but David Sylvian, as I understand it, is still very much alive, not doing very much at all these days. His brother, Steve Jensen, is still very much alive and active. Richard Barberi. I think they could get together and continue on from their Rain Tree Crow album that they did together a while ago. I'd love to see that. That would be a really, really good comeback, and I think it would go down a storm. Number 19, an album you jam in your Walkman. So as said, I listen to a lot of Duran Duran, a lot of typical 80s sort of pop music of the time. This came out and it was amazing. So it's come out in 85, and I didn't actually own this. I borrowed the cassette from a friend at school, and I'm kind of guilty of hanging on to it longer than I said I would, because I didn't want to give it back. I was enjoying it so much. Of course, in those days you could make your own copy, couldn't you? So that's probably what I did. But this was a big favourite of mine in my Walkman. Yeah, I would have kind of included this up front in one of the earlier questions. Favourite act from Live Aid. But like I said, Robert Palmer, he left them quite literally days before they were going to go on. So I wasn't able to use this to answer that question. But a great band to listen to on your Walkman. Number 20, 80s crush. So this is the last question. My 80s crush is definitely Wendy Smith. I love her vocals. She is absolutely incredible, and yeah, I've always fancied her. I saw them perform live at the Portsmouth Guildhall in around about 89, I guess, and I got a smile from Wendy Smith. You know, there was hundreds of people in the crowd, and I waved up to her and called out her name, and she looked at me and smiled, and I always remember that. You know, that's sort of a pivotal time for me, and they would make a great band to have a comeback. I mean, I know Paddy McLoone is still going, but it'd be great if Wendy Smith was to rejoin him and reform the band that they were in the 80s. But anyway, she was my 80s crush. Okay, Graham, so that's all the questions answered. Hope you found this interesting. Thanks very much for watching, everybody. Good luck, Graham, with your next 20 years. And don't forget to check out my next video. Okay, bye.